So, good day everyone. I will be your reporter for today. Cordero Catherine K., Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in Mathematics. So, before we start our discussion, we are going to have a quick review on what our topic is in our last discussion. So, does anyone still remember what was the discussion of last reporter? Yes, it is all about paradigm shift from teacher-centered to learner-centered teaching. Since you still remember the lesson last meeting, let's have a small activity that is called an active recall. So I'll give you two pictures with words written under it. And after that, I will let you identify what philosophical perspective it belongs. So, is it teacher-centered philosophy or student-centered philosophy? Am I clear, everyone? Okay, let's start. In the first picture, it shows how essentialism is done. So, where does essentialism belong? Is it teacher-centered philosophy or student-centered philosophy? So the answer is essentialism is under teacher-centered philosophy. As you can see, the teacher is somewhat spoon-feeding the students, and mainly, the students just listen to what the teacher is saying. Now, let's proceed to the second picture. In the second picture, it shows how constructivism is done. Based from the picture, where does constructivism belong? Is it teacher-centered philosophy or student-centered philosophy? So the answer is constructivism belongs to student-centered teaching. As you can see in the second picture, the students are sharing their ideas to each other, while the teacher is only facilitating them. So now that we're done in our quick review, let's proceed to my discussion. 5 dimensions of student-centered teaching. So there are 5 dimensions of learner-centered teaching, and these are the function of content, the role of the instructor, the responsibility for learning, the purposes and processes of assessment, and the balance of power. So in teaching, consider the following question. What is the role of the teacher? What is the balance of power? What is the function of content? And whose responsibility is it for learning? Is it the teacher or the students? And what is the purpose of process of evaluation? So as we continue in this lesson, we're going to answer those questions that I'm asking about. So most respond to these questions from a traditional point of view. The faculty gives students content to learn. Evaluation is for students to show faculty what they know. Faculty have all the power. But another perspective to these questions is called learner-centered teaching. In their seminal paper, Barr and Tag 1995, argue that teaching needs to shift from an instruction-centered focus to a student's learning. So, to move to a learner-centered approach, Weimer invites us to consider the 5 questions that we discussed in the beginning of this report. So these questions challenge our assumptions about teaching and invite us to rethink our approach to undergraduate students. What does learner-centered teaching look like in practice? Phyllis Blomberg developed a rubric that contrasts instructor-centered and learner-centered approaches to teaching based on Weimer's 5 dimensions of learner-centered teaching. So, let's go, see, and understand. Topic number 1. The function of the content. Definition of this dimension is that content includes building a knowledge base, how the instructor and the students use the content, and an essential component of this dimension is that it is a level to which students engage content. Let's compare and contrast the teacher-centered approach versus learner-centered approach about the function of the content. In teacher-centered approach, the instructor allows students to memorize content. In student-centered approach, the instructor encourages students to transform and reflect on most of the content to make their own meaning out of it. So which do you think is more effective? Yes, so the most effective approach is the student-learner-centered approach because it is more an active recall than in teacher-centered. It is more like passive because it allows memorization, which can result in short-term memory, while if you reflect on the topic that you are learning, it is more on long-term and it is effective. Topic number 2, the role of the instructor. So the definition of this dimension is an essential role of the instructor is to assist students to learn. An essential component of this dimension is that instructors uses teaching and learning methods appropriate for students' learning goals. So in teacher-centered approach, the instructor does not have specific learning goals and or uses teaching and learning methods that conflict with learning goals. Therefore, it is ineffective. In student-centered approach, the instructor intentionally uses various teaching and learning methods that are appropriate for student learning goals. Topic number 3, the responsibility for learning. The definition of this dimension is that students should assume greater responsibility for their own learning over time. An essential component of this dimension is that responsibility for learning should rest with the student. In teacher-centered approach, instructor assumes all responsibility for students' learning, provides content to memorize, does not require students to create their own meaning of content, tells students exactly what will be on examinations. In student-centered approach, the instructor provides increasing opportunities for students to assume responsibility for their own learning, leading to achievement and stated learning objectives. Topic number 4, the purposes and processes of assessment. The definition of this dimension is that there are additional purposes and processes of assessment beyond assigning grades. An essential component of this dimension is that giving students formative assessment, giving feedback to foster improvement. In teacher-centered approach, the instructor uses only summative assessment to make decisions to assign grades. Instructor also provides students with no constructive feedback. In student-centered approach, consistently throughout the learning process, instructor integrate formative assessment and constructivism. Topic number 5, the balance of power. The definition of this dimension is that the balance of power shifts so that the instructor shares some decision about the course with the students. The essential component of this dimension is that it contains flexibility of course policies, assessment, learning methods, and deadlines. In teacher-centered approach, instructor mandates all policies and deadlines, or instructor does not adhere to policies. In student-centered approach, the instructor is flexible on most course policies, assessment methods, learning methods, deadlines, and instructor always adheres to what instructor has agreed to with the students. Conclusion: learner-centered methods have repeatedly been shown to be superior to the traditional teacher-centered approach to instruction. A conclusion that applies whether the assessed outcome is short-term mastery, long-term retention, or depth of understanding of course materials, acquisition of critical thinking, or creative problem-solving skills, formation of positive attitudes toward the subject being taught, or level of self-confidence in knowledge and skills. So that is all for today's topic, and I hope you learned something. Goodbye!